and welcome to episode 5 of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. The podcast that you never even asked for. It's taken me 5 episodes to get that little tagline in. That is how I first introduced this podcast to the world on my little teaser when it first dropped. And I always forgot to put it in here. But there you go. The Dits on Wrestling podcast. The podcast that you never even asked for. There you go. Just remember that. That'll stick in your head. Never forget it. So this week, time has not been kind to your host. I have very little time to do anything this week. So recording has taken a hit. Watching all the wrestling of the week has also taken a hit. So I haven't actually watched NXT again for the second week in a row, which is very disgusting behavior on my part. And I haven't even caught up on last week's NXT either, like I said I would. So I'm a bad person for that. I feel sick to the stomach of myself for even allowing 2 weeks of NXT free living. It's not right. Doesn't feel right. But I still thought I may be facing off against time this week, but I'm still going to give you the best episode that I possibly can within the constraints. So this week you're going to see a watered down version of the news. So you're going to get quick fire headlines, not the in-depth stuff that I would usually do. That'll take a back seat this week. Next week, obviously, we'll go back to it because I'd imagine it's bank holiday weekend here in the UK, so I'm going to have enough time to record the podcast as I usually would. So this week, quick fire news. Highlights, they're still here. Don't worry about that. But there aren't that many highlights in WWE at the moment, so that'll be more or less nice and quick, maybe. And then I was going to go in depth with some Money in the Bank predictions as well, but we'll see how we go on that one. I record the intro before I record anything else. So you may get, at the end of this episode, you might actually get some in-depth predictions from Money in the Bank this Sunday, or you're just going to get a list of names. We'll see how we go. Yeah, that's about it, guys. I'm wrestling time this week, and I don't like feeling the pressure of time on my shoulders. But one thing, a bright spot, I guess, is the fact that we have a new theme to the show. It was going to just be the theme for bonus episodes, and I was going to have one for this, the episodic stuff, and then another theme for the bonus stuff. And then I enjoyed the bonus one so much that I thought, you know what? It's just going to take over. It's going to take over everything. So that is my theme now, going forward. But like I said, time is of the essence. So let's get into the news of the week. And no more deep, weird, echoey voice from me either in this segue. We now have a proper segue to enjoy. So, Bad News Barrett, hit it.
Well, I'm afraid I've got some news.
You know, I actually sat and thought, what is this podcast missing? And the only thing I could think of was during that little news segment, right at the start, we need some Bad News Barrett. That's what we need. That's what it's been missing. The first 4 episodes of they just haven't had it. Now they do. Now it has Bad News Barrett. He will forever be on this podcast. He will never leave, ever. I will always find space for him. Always. Right, so quick fire news this week. We're just gonna rattle it off. Maybe talk about it just a tiny little bit, but nothing as in depth as usual. As I already said on the intro, pay attention. So the big news this week, big news was that AEW, All Elite Wrestling, have announced their TV deal. And what a big deal it is. They have signed with Turner Broadcasting, TNT, as in what WCW used to broadcast on. Now, last week on the news section, obviously I talked a little bit about it, and that was what the speculation was at the time, but it is now being confirmed that yes, AEW will air on TNT, and what a time to be a wrestling fan. Genuinely, so many options out there, and it's nice to see, and obviously they haven't done anything yet. They're not quite the t-shirt company that everyone makes them out to be, but they haven't done anything quite yet. So we will reserve judgment. But this is still huge. This is a huge thing for wrestling as a whole. The fact that a huge network in the States, after so many years away from the wrestling, they've come back to it. That is the power of AEW and what Cody, Kenny, the Bucks, all them guys, the power of what they're doing over there. So this is huge, really huge. So I guess we'll see what happens at Double or Nothing, gauge the success of that show, and then head into those weeklies. And I'm genuinely excited about this, really excited. But there you go, AEW has its TV deal, and it is on the former home of WCW. Now, I did wrestle with myself a little bit today about whether to actually include this on this week's news, but I feel the impact that it has had for everybody in the industry, all the fans of wrestling, just everything. I just felt like I needed just to get it on here and just kind of share my little thing about it. Sadly, Ashley Massaro passed away this week at the age of 39. I mean, absolutely crazy. Such a young age to even associate with death. For those of you who aren't aware of what Ashley did, I mean, she was part of the Diva Search back in 2005 in WWE. She ended up winning that competition, and that is, I mean, honestly, that is more or less the extent of my knowledge of Ashley. It was around the time where I stopped watching wrestling for a little bit, but I always remember that Diva Search and Ashley standing out more than anybody else, because it just seemed that she didn't want to be another diva. You know, if you were to describe a diva now, that is not what she wanted to be. She just wanted to be herself, and you could see that the way she dressed, the way she was. She had this whole punk attitude, and you can draw similarities to how Caitlyn was, how AJ Lee was, Paige. Before there was even a women's revolution, you know, she was there doing that stuff before any of those guys did. You know, and that drew me to Ashley. You know, I always wanted her to win that Diva Search, and you know, lo and behold, she did. You know, and she went on to have a decent little career in WWE. But I think it's more how she was outside of the ring that everybody seems to be talking about, and rightfully so. She seems, just going off what people in wrestling have been saying about her all day, she seems like a really genuine, a nice person. And I mean, we live on social media these days, and we can see just how toxic people are these days. But I never got the impression that she was like that. And it's a shame to lose somebody who had that positivity in such a negative world. And I think the biggest, you know, thing, the the gut wrench is the fact that she also had a daughter as well, who unfortunately is, been left behind after all of this. But really all I can say, is my condolences to, Ashley's daughter and her family. Just absolutely terrible news. Now, you didn't think we were going to make it through the week without talking about Mr. Nice Guy himself, Lars Sullivan. Not a chance. So, WWE actually acted upon everything that he did. They fined him $100,000 and are going to make him attend sensitivity classes. There you go. So the sponsors get involved, and then WWE act accordingly. Whether people think this is enough of a punishment for him, it's up there in the air. People are saying, yeah, at least they've done something. Others are saying it's not enough, but they've got a punishment for him regardless. He's also been going around apologizing to individual members of the roster as well. The only person who's acknowledged it, as far as I'm aware, is Titus O'Neil. He went on Twitter and more or less accepted the apology. I think he was quite impressed that Lars was actually going about it that way and seeing individual members of the roster and apologizing for his actions. So whether other members in the locker room will be as welcoming towards these apologies, who knows? Big E seemed to think, as I mentioned last week, that he's going to struggle doing it, as did Kalisto. But there are members of the roster who, may welcome Lars back with open arms, but we'll see how it ends up. But it's still probably not a very happy place for Lars in that locker room at the moment. And there you have it. That is the news of the week. Quick fire news. See, we could make this a thing. Talk about Raw and SmackDown, NXT, if I actually watch it. Going more in depth on those stuff rather than the news. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll put a post up on Twitter and see what you guys think. But there you go. That's the news for the week. So let's not drag our heels. Let's not drag our ass. Let's get straight into those Raw highlights. Here we go.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
The WWE currently have a trend of pushing out mediocre television every single week. And that's not just Raw. That, at the moment, also extends to SmackDown Live, but to a lesser extent. But SmackDown Live isn't as good as it used to be. Hence, the lack of highlights for SmackDown this week. It's not as vast as it usually would be. But we're talking about Raw now. And I managed to find 3 highlights this week. And I'm going to talk about the best one. And it has been a recurring theme, not only on this podcast, but on social media, YouTube, like anywhere, even people outside of wrestling are talking about the Firefly Funhouse. And this week ramped it up by 1,000. I was expecting something sinister this week, but nothing like what we got. I mean, we had last week, the kids were introduced on the segment and they were just emotionless, sat there. Again, you kind of got a feeling of that sinister way that Bray is going. And then this week there were no kids, and I was like, okay, maybe they've taken a little step backwards. He's got this, secret, whatever it may be. And then stuff started happening. The rabbit, the buzzard, Abby, they started getting a bit tetchy. And then bang! Bray Wyatt suddenly joined Slipknot, put on this mask, and sang a very, very interesting version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I will not be putting my child to bed with that song. But it was absolutely brilliant. The amount of times I've watched that video on YouTube is unbelievable. Like, more so than the first Firefly Funhouse episode. This, for me, is the best thing in WWE right now. And nobody would have said that about Bray Wyatt this time last year. Not one single person would have said that Bray Wyatt would be the most talked about person on Raw or SmackDown in WWE. Nobody would have said that. And he's come up with this idea and invested in it 200%. He's not just gone full into it, he's gone fully into it. The dedication to this gimmick and the potential that we're going to get from it as well. Like, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I don't know how it's going to translate to the ring, whether he wrestles as the character he was initially that we saw on the Funhouse, or whether he's just going to go straight into this dark, sinister side that he can control. That's what he said. He can control this dark side, but I don't know how it's going to play out with the actual wrestling side of things. The backstage segments and promos, all that kind of stuff, he's nailed down. Like, every single time that he comes onto the screen, whether it be backstage promo, whatever, it's going to be gold. It's going to be great. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be spooky as F. But I'll be interested to see how that translates to actual in-ring work. I don't know. I can't even think in my head how it would go, which I like. I like that it's completely unpredictable and that it has me second-guessing absolutely everything that he could do in-ring. I'm very, very excited. And for the first time in a long time with Bray, I think the last time I got excited about Bray Wyatt was when he won the WWE Championship. That all went to pot. And the momentum just completely went away for him following that reign. But now it's back. He's got a very, very good hold on that momentum as well. And we'll see how he carries that when he does eventually get into the ring. And I do think that we're either going to see him at Money in the Bank in some way, shape or form, or we're going to see him on Raw. Or saying that, oh no, well actually no, not even saying that. I was going to say we're going to see him on Raw, but then the vignettes have also been airing on SmackDown. But then you got this stupid wildcard rule, so he could end up on 205 Live for all I care. He's going to show up somewhere. But I think following Money in the Bank, I will put no money on it, but hypothetically, I will put money on Bray Wyatt showing up on Raw in some way, shape or form in the flesh. So we'll see if that comes true. But no, the Firefly Funhouse was brilliant this week. The best one yet. In ring wise, my highlight match, as I always tend to either have two or one, or maybe if we're lucky, we'll even get 3 match highlights. But I only have one this week. That's not to say that all the matches were bad. It's just this one was a lot better. Cesaro, Mysterio faced off, and they had a little backstage spat, which led to this match being announced. And what a match it was! Like, I don't know if they've actually faced each other before. I'm sure they have. I just don't remember it. But they had a really, really good match. It was very, 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 very smooth, fluid. I mean, that spot where they both tumbled out of the ring and Ray stayed on Cesaro's shoulders. Unbelievable. Like, if you haven't seen it, go and check that out. You'll not see anything that smooth. unbelievable. Absolute amazing athleticism from both of them for even being able to pull that off. But the actual match itself was really enjoyable, and it has me longing for a future program between the two of them. Like, these two on pay-per-view would be great, and it's really good to see Mysterio at this stage of his career. I don't know how old he is. I'm gonna guess 44. If I had to hazard a guess how old he was, that's what I'm going for. 44. At this stage, coming back to WWE, he's had a good series with Andrade, and potentially we could see something good with Samoa Joe as well on Sunday at Money in the Bank. But Cesaro, I mean, I want to see that. I want to see these two face off. I'd love to see a best of 3 with Rey and Cesaro, just because it means more. It means more of this. But no, that was a really good match. If you haven't watched any wrestling this week, WWE wise, this is the match that you should go and watch, because it was the best thing on WWE TV match wise this week. I didn't watch NXT, so there could have been a really good match on NXT this week that I'm not aware of. But main roster-wise, you will not get better than Rey versus Cesaro. And last but not least, we had the contract signing between Becky Lynch, Lacey Evans, and Charlotte. Now, usually I would say the contract signings are just pointless, generic, just completely unoriginal. And I guess this week kind of was unoriginal, because we've seen it all before. Chat, sign contracts, a little bit more chatting, bang, brawl. In fact, we only saw it 2 weeks ago with Seth and AJ. Contract signing, chat, sign, chat, brawl. So it's very, very copy and paste with WWE when it comes to contract signings, but this one was actually enjoyable just through the promo work alone. Becky was her usual self. She was on fire. The put down she was coming out with were fantastic as always. She came across as she's not fazed by the fact that she has 2 matches at Money in the Bank. I got the feeling that she's now in their head. Like she said, you might think the pressure's on me for having 2 matches, but Lacey, this is your first championship opportunity. There's your pressure. And the pressure's on Charlotte. See if she can actually finally best Becky. Obviously she'd beaten him before, but this could be the last time they face for quite some time. So Becky was great. Charlotte, a usual good heel self, always has good responses to Becky. But my focus really on this highlight is Lacey. And I never thought I would say that. After watching Lacey just walking up and down the ramp for what seemed like 6 years, to seeing her character progress as much as it has, to the point where she can pretty much stand shoulder to shoulder with Charlotte and Becky when it comes to promos. Like, them two are some of the best promo workers in the company, not just in the women's division, but in the company. And for Lacey to be able to, I wouldn't say she's exactly their equal, but during that contract signing, she was just as good as Charlotte and Becky. And I was really impressed by that. It's still very, very early in her wrestling career, but promos have been something that she's been able to nail down. I mean, I actually watched a video of her back in NXT in a promo class, and she delivered a really good promo down there. Don't ask me what it was about. I can't even remember, but I just remember watching it and thinking, she's not going to have an issue when it comes to her speaking, because at this point she was still walking up and down the ramp. But I remember just looking and going, when she does eventually get a mic in her hand, she'll be fine. It's just the in-ring stuff that she needs to work on. I think she's not established like most of the women's division, and that's because she was just plucked from NXT too early. And I think that's been the general consensus, from most people, that it's been too early for her to go up to the main roster. However, recently she has been proving people wrong, myself included. I consider myself a fan of Lacey Evans now. Like, she's been very, very entertaining in the last couple of weeks. But this Sunday is her first real big test. We obviously saw her at the Royal Rumble. I don't think that's the right place to pass judgment on somebody, especially like their in-ring debut on the main roster. She did a couple of, mistakes during that when she was squaring off against Charlotte, but I don't really count that, to be honest. A Sunday for me is the one. It's a big spotlight. It's a championship match, and I think she's gonna bring it. I really do think she's gonna bring it, and and Becky's gonna bring out the best of Lacey as well. And I don't know which one's gonna go on first. I don't know if it's gonna be Lacey Becky first, or or Becky Charlotte first. But I do hope that it's Lacey and Becky first, because if that's the case, I think we're going to get a longer match. It gives Lacey more time to show what she can do. They can tell a better story. I don't think she's going to win, but imagine if she did. That'd be interesting. I don't know how they would play it going forward, but it would be interesting. She's got the character work to pull off winning that title. So I wouldn't be against it. I would not be against it. But no, the actual contract signing itself was really enjoyable this week. And that's where the highlights stop for Raw. Usually I would read out some of your tweets about Raw, what you thought about it. But time constraints are not allowing me to do so. So with that said, let's go straight over to the blue brand, to SmackDown Live. Here we go.
Welcome everyone to SmackDown Live.
Another week, another disappointing SmackDown. But a disappointing SmackDown is still a decent SmackDown, so at least we have that on our side. Only 2 highlights for SmackDown this week. I could have made it 3, because they replayed the Firefly Funhouse from Raw. Even though Corey Graves said it was a new edition of the Firefly Funhouse, which got me really excited. I thought, oh my God, he's had the whole thing on Monday with the mask and the whole creepy stuff going on. And then I thought, we're going to get that again a day later, but just new material. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. And then they played the same thing again. Not that I complained. I was happy to watch it again. But I did think it was going to be something new. So thank you, Graves, for getting my hopes up on that one. But no, I'm not going to include that as a third highlight, because that would be cheating. But I do need to boost the numbers somehow. But no, only 2 highlights this week. The first one is in-ring, the fatal 4-way between Balor, Andrade, Orton, and Ali. It was a nice little teaser for the Money in the Bank match on Sunday. That was half of the field for the men's ladder match. Really enjoyed it. Really fun match. Everybody managed to showcase their abilities. Everyone got a little bit of the spotlight. My favorite part was the RKO, as it usually is these days. Like, Randy's gimmick is essentially the RKO now. That is what he is. He is an RKO that just walks around and will eventually strike when the time is right. And the RKO that he hit on Ali after he missed the 054. Is that right? 054? 045? 450? 054? Yeah, that's right. 054. And then he rolled out of it straight into the RKO. Absolutely fantastic. Really nice and fluid. Loved it. Yeah, it was a fun match. Did the right person win? I don't know. I guess there really wasn't a right person to win. Anybody could have won that match, but unfortunately, due to WWE's love of 50-50 booking, it doesn't look like Andrade is going to win on Sunday. But hopefully WWE prove us wrong, because I would love to see Andrade with the briefcase and with Zelina as his mouthpiece. I think it would just really complete that tandem, him having that briefcase. But anybody could win that briefcase and I would be happy. And yes, I am even including Baron Corbin in that list, because he is an absolute heat magnet for good reasons, for bad reasons. Him having the briefcase, as much as it would be hated, legitimately hated, I think we could have some fun, and I think we could have some fun with it. So, but no, overall, really fun match, and a nice little teaser for what we're going to see on Sunday. The next highlight, and the last highlight, 2 highlights on SmackDown. What is going on? The Kofi and Kevin segment. It wasn't the best segment that it could possibly be before they face off on Sunday, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, and the fact that it also included Sami Zayn back with Kevin Owens again, that was a fun little moment for me. Having them two together always brings a smile to my face. Yeah, it was a fun little segment. Kofi showed some fire. He's really thriving as WWE champion, which, I mean, not to say that I didn't think that he would, but I think he's embraced it a lot more than I thought he would. He's really running with it, and he's showing that he deserves to hold that belt around his waist. And I think Sunday is going to be a really fun match with Kevin Owens. I think they've established a nice little feud, and seeing how they were on SmackDown this week, seeing what they can do with so little, to be honest. I think it's going to be a really good match. Props go out, as they always should. If one thing is going to be right in WWE, it's the video production team. They always nail it. That video package with Charlotte and Becky earlier in the night was brilliant. And then the Kevin Owens one that we saw in the main event, again, absolutely fantastic. Just showing how destructive Kevin Owens can be. And that sold Owens more than a promo could, more than a match where he does something destructive in it. He could have powerbombed 3 people on the apron in one match, and it wouldn't have sold it quite like that video promo. So big props have to go out to the video production team, because every single time they do something, they nail it. And that really sold this whole feud for me, just seeing that side of Kevin Owens again. It's a side that I think many people have forgotten about, especially considering he came back as a babyface and he joined the New Day as this fun-loving character. It turns out it was all a load of BS, and he obviously was just focused on the WWE title. But it was nice that we got to see that side of him. But it came at a price. Obviously, we forgot about all the bad stuff he's capable, about the prize fighter Kevin Owens, all that kind of stuff. But the video package, perfect, reminded us all about what Kevin Owens is capable of. But the actual segment, loved it. Not too much conflict between them, not too much interaction, like physically, which is good. Saves it for the pay-per-view. Very excited for this match. And there you go, like SmackDown highlights are done. Unbelievable. Maybe it's because I don't have that much time and I'm just flying on through. But no, generally, these were the only two highlights of SmackDown Live for me this week. Oh, I just have to say as well, the Kabuki Warriors, terrible name. And I will leave you with that. But let's head into the Money in the Bank predictions. Here we go. So as I warned in the intro, I was either going to give you some in-depth Money in the Bank predictions, or I was just going to give you the names. I'm going to meet you somewhere in between. So I've got the match card in front of me now. We'll start off with the tag team match, the only tag team match on the show, and that is Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan against the Usos, non-title at the moment. I think you've got to pull for Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan there. They've just won the straps themselves, and I think it would be just silly if the Usos took it. I don't care how they win. They might find a dirty way to do it, but you can't look past Bryan and Rowan. Interesting that it's on the kickoff. Daniel Bryan on the kickoff after being WWE champion at WrestleMania just last month. Weird. Very, very weird. Tony Nese against Daivari. Well, Tony Nese for me. He's going to win that one. Excuse me, so early into his reign. He's going to take this one, I think. Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio, United States Championship on the line. My money is on Joe. I don't think this is going to be the end of the feud, to be honest. I think this is going to carry on just because they have that Dominic element to it now. So I think Samoa Joe is going to win, but he's going to involve Dominic in the finish in some way, shape, or form. Maybe Dominic comes down to the ring. He's going to be ringside for the duration of the match. And then towards the end, when Rey seems to be getting the upper hand on Joe, he'll lock Dominic in the coquina clutch. And it'll force Rey into doing something silly, something stupid. And Joe will capitalize and retain his title. That's what I'm going with for that one. So, Kofi Kingston versus Kevin Owens for the WWE title. I'm going with Kofi on this one. So much has been invested in Kofi just by giving him the title in the first place. And I think it's way too soon to be dropping that title, even to somebody as established and somebody as good as Kevin Owens. Kofi needs a good first title defense just to solidify that he, air quotes, deserves it. And I think he's going to show that on Sunday at Money in the Bank. Kevin Owens, a loss won't hurt him, to be honest. He can come out of this still looking good. It'll be his second title opportunity that he's had for the WWE Championship this year. And it's probably going to be the second one that he's going to lose. So he can use that in a future storyline. Maybe again for the WWE Championship, but result in him actually winning. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But expect some interference of some description. Either Zayn or Woods. Something like that's going to happen. But for me, Kofi's got it. The Miz versus Shane, Steel Cage. You can't overlook The Miz for this one. Shane got the win at WrestleMania. 50-50 booking. The Miz is going to get this one. What I will predict, though, is that Shane will do a coast-to-coast from the top of the cage to the corner on Miz. Or he'll miss. He'll miss, and then The Miz capitalizes on that and wins the match by escaping. But this is the perfect place for Shane to do something stupid. So I think we can all predict something along those lines. Excuse me. Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair, SmackDown Women's Championship. Becky. Going with Becky on this one. Charlotte doesn't need another championship at the moment. Like, just move on to somebody else without a title. Get into a feud with Bayley. Get into a feud with Ember Moon. Non-title. She doesn't need it. Becky. Well, she's got the whole Becky 2 belts thing going on. And it's over. Like, Becky 2 belts is over. You heard them in London this week. That's all they were chanting. Becky 2 belts. Becky 2 belts. It can't be ignored. It cannot be ignored. So, just on that basis alone, I'm going with Becky. But it's going to be a good match, I'm sure. Roman versus Elias. Straight up singles match. I'm going for a DQ. A Roman win, but via DQ. I think Elias is going to bring in the guitar. He's going to be down on his luck in the match. That it's not going to be going his way. Goes outside, gets guitar, bang, smacks it over Reigns' back. DQ win for Reigns. Again, there's going to be shenanigans in this. I don't know whether Shane's going to get involved. Maybe not, because he's going to be feeling the brunt of the steel cage match, depending on what match goes on first. But I can see a DQ in that match. What else we got? Women's Championship match opportunity. Money in the Bank. Natalya, Dana Brooke, Naomi, Bayley, Mandy Rose, Ember Moon, Carmella, Nikki Cross. I'm going to go for Nikki Cross, just because I think her as the Money in the Bank holder would be really fun. Like, she seems to be going away from that crazy character, as we saw with her little promo with Alexa this week. But in the match itself, in the Fatal 4-Way on Raw, she still has that element of craziness to her character, which I hope doesn't fully go away. And I think if she's got that Money in the Bank briefcase, it's going to be fun. We're going to get some really good moments with her and that briefcase. And she's unpredictable as a character herself. So with the briefcases on top of that, I think you've got scope for some fun fake-out cash-ins and then an eventual real cash-in. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going with Nikki Cross, even though she's a late addition. And they may have decided the winner for that match already. Maybe Nikki Cross going into it will change Creative's mind. Or Vince's mind, because obviously the buck starts with him. Excuse me. Men's Money in the Bank match. Sami Zayn, Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, Ali, Finn Balor, Andrade, and Randy Orton. Any one of these guys, like I said earlier, could win, and I would not complain. But the guy that I want to hold that is I can't decide between Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. I think Sami would be hilarious as a Money in the Bank holder, especially with this arrogant, fan-hating character that he's got right now. But as I'm actually looking at this match card, I actually know who I want to win. Drew McIntyre. Give it to him. I've wanted to see him with that Universal title for months now. Maybe even a year since he debuted on the main roster. Like, instantly, he was fantastic. And I think giving him the briefcase, not that he needs it, but I think giving him the briefcase would be an interesting run, because he is a legit wrestler. And he's very, very good at what he does. And I'd love to see what he can do with a cash-in. I think he could provide something a little bit different from the norm. I'd like to think. But either Sami Zayn or Drew McIntyre. But if I had to choose between the two, I would go Drew McIntyre. Seth Rollins against AJ Styles for the Universal Championship. It's one of those things. It's too early in Seth's reign to drop the title to AJ. I've seen a lot of people say AJ's going to turn full heel in this match, and I don't see it. I don't think it's needed. They can just have... I mean, going in, AJ does have the heel dynamic out of the two of them, and every match... I think every match does need that. So AJ has that little heel edge, but he's not full heel. He's not fully embraced it, and I don't expect him to do it on Sunday either. I think it's just going to be a straight up fun little match between the two of them. Hopefully it goes 20-25 minutes so they can really build this match together and create what we feel that they can do together. Like it on paper, this is going to be magic, and for me, it's actually kind of flown under the radar with the 2 Money in the Bank matches, Becky's 2 matches. It doesn't seem to be getting that much attention. They didn't even get that much attention on Raw this week. They had a video package and 2 backstage interviews. So maybe not much focus is going to be on it, and hopefully that can be made up at the pay-per-view itself, in ring. But no, I've got Seth winning that one. And finally, Becky versus Lacey Evans. I mean, the fact that that's the last match on this card that I'm reading from ye old Google, is that going to be the main event? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Becky again, as good as Lacey has been recently, and the improvement that she's had with her character, you cannot overlook Becky Lynch. Becky 2 belts is still going to be a thing on Monday Night Raw and on SmackDown Live next week. That is my prediction. And there you go. Quick fire Money in the Bank predictions. I wish I could have gone into more depth with them this week. I really do. But next week, when the pod drops, we will obviously go into depth about Money in the Bank, and hopefully my predictions will be right. So we can talk about that next week and see how I did. So there's your Money in the Bank predictions. I guess there's only one thing left, and that is my recommendations for the week. My first recommendation this week was a nice and easy one. He makes it very, very easy to get him on this segment on the show this week. At Illustrious G40, he is the MG Experience. It seems to be a trend when it comes to DOW recommends, and that is good guys, like just genuine guys and girls. Like, he's one of the good guys on Twitter. He's always willing to show support to absolutely everybody, especially content creators. He himself is a podcast host. He goes on the Regular Guy Wrestle Talk podcast show. But he, like every week, he's got me in Follow Friday lists. He supports everybody else's podcast. Like he's a very, very giving person. He just seems like a really good dude, and I can't recommend him enough. And I know I say that every single week. I cannot recommend this person enough, but I genuinely can't. He's just a good guy. Really fun posts on his Twitter as well. He's when you think about the wrestling community, and you've got like the key members of that community, I would say he's up there. He really does drive to pull everybody together. Like, no one podcaster is better than the other. No one YouTuber is better than the other. No one Twitter account is better than the other. He puts everybody on an equal footing and brings everybody together. And I love that about him. Love that about him. So get yourself on your Twitter and press follow on at Illustrious G40. You'll see him as the MG Experience. Give him a follow. He more than deserves a little bit more attention. Good guy, very good guy. My second recommendation this week is at Dan the Graps Fan. You'll see his name as Dan the Wrestling Fan. Again, the trend continues. He is another good guy in the wrestling community. He's got the thing I like about Dan is that he has really fun posts. He's an entertaining account to follow. He seems to start trends, and I may be wrong on that, but when I see stuff floating around wrestling Twitter, it always seems to come from him. So whether he's either originated it or he's just bettered it, it's one or the other, and both of those are positive things. So it's good stuff. But no, he's a very, very entertaining account to follow. Very, very funny. Just if you like wrestling and you're on Twitter, you've got to give him a follow. It's as simple as that. Now, I've gone with my third recommendation of the week purely because I like people who tell it how it is. And this guy certainly tells it how it is. Either in a serious way or in a fun way. Either way you take it, it's good. So if you go and follow McCusker86, otherwise known simply as John, you're going to get some straight talking from this guy. He tells exactly how it is. If he doesn't like something, he doesn't like something. If he likes it, he likes it. And that's something so simple like that for someone to be like, they don't beat around the bush. It's not it's not coming up with just complete BS just to satisfy everybody that follows him, the rest of Twitter. It's him speaking of him. That's why I really, really gravitate towards his account. And the thing that really, I've followed John for a long time now, but what really made me think about him this week, I just happened to catch his pinned tweet, which I did respond to when he first dropped it last month. Remember when we all just watched wrestling and effing enjoyed it? There was none of this deserves better nonsense. We didn't care about the backstage politics. We didn't care about wrestlers' personal lives. We just watched. And I saw that and I thought, we need more of somebody who just talks like that, just tells it how it is. But he's also an entertaining account as well. He's a funny guy. And he's definitely worth a follow. Even if he is a Celtic fan. But we'll excuse that one, John. We'll excuse that one. And finally, my fourth and final recommendation, I've got to give some love to a fellow SLTD personnel at Callum Owen 98, or simply Callum Owen over on Twitter. I've known him now for maybe 2 years. He was at SLTD before I got there. He's a contributor to the website, does a lot of writing for them. He's a really good guy. He would not see you again. He's a really good guy. I could just press down repeat every single week for DOW recommends. Good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy. But that's why I'm recommending them, because they're good guys. But no, he would rather see everything in a positive light than see things, in a bad way. And I like that about him. He's very, very passionate about wrestling as well. And it's something that I think is lost a lot these days. You just get people that just watch it just for the sake of watching it. It's just something they used to watch when they were younger, and it's just become a habit. But what I get from Callum is that he still has that passion for wrestling, and it's refreshing as hell, to be honest, because I think it is very, very easy to fall into that pattern of just getting used to it and taking it for granted. And I don't think Callum is that guy. He's still the guy that loves watching wrestling, no matter what it is. WWE, AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, whatever. He loves it for what it is, wrestling. And I love him for that. He's writing as well on the website for SLTD. Very enjoyable. Definitely go check those stuff out. He's got his own page on there. If you want to delve back further, there's archives on the website as well if you want to check out all of his stuff. He's a guy that I definitely want to get on the podcast as well once guest spots are up and running. It'd be good to have a nice little chat about wrestling with him. But yeah, go give at Callum98 a follow. He's a really good dude. And that is it. That is the end of the recommendations for the week. I actually thought this was going to be a short show, but it hasn't been. We're still nearing that hour mark, which we always are. So I don't know where I was supposed to shed time, but I've still been able to get to the hour mark and I've only shed about 10 minutes actually off the whole thing. But there you go. Sadly, though, that is all we have time for this week. Lots happened this week, but obviously I wasn't able to cover it all. Next week, we go back to standard drill. We're going to cover all the news, all the highlights, Money in the Bank as well, and I will watch NXT. I will watch NXT next week. I have to watch NXT next week. I'm having withdrawal symptoms. It's going to be a good one next week. So just watch out for it. Maybe a bonus episode will drop as well. We'll see how we go. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the podcast and showing your support by doing so. Of course, you can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can also catch it on Spotify, Stitcher, and as part of the SLTD podcast network over on Spreaker as well. Eventually, we'll probably grow it a little bit more, but for now, those are nice little homes for this podcast to lie in. But that is it for this week. Enjoy Money in the Bank on Sunday. Let's hope my predictions are correct. I'm sure they will be, because I'm a feckin' genius. But apart from that, enjoy the show, enjoy Money in the Bank, enjoy your week next week, and I'll see you for episode 6. Have a good one, guys.